The rain fell in a gentle rhythm, tapping against the tin roof of the small-town bus station. The air was damp, carrying the faint scent of wet asphalt, and the sky glowed in shades of orange and purple as the sun sank behind the hills. Daniel sat alone on the worn wooden bench, his office shirt slightly creased from a long day. He absent-mindedly scrolled through his phone, letting the noise of the rain drown out the occasional sound of a departing bus. Then, without warning, a small notification appeared on his screen, a reminder from years ago. It was the anniversary of a promise. A promise made in a hospital waiting room, when his best friend Liam, pale and fragile, had told him about moving to the city for treatment. Daniel had gripped Liam's hand and vowed to visit every year, no matter how busy life became. At the time, it felt sincere, important. But years passed, work piled up, excuses multiplied, and visits became next time. Eventually, next time never came. He stared at the reminder, his thumb hovering over the screen, his mind replaying the day he made that vow. It's just words, he had told himself whenever guilt crept in. After all, promises couldn't cure illness, could they? Yet something about that moment, the rain, the fading light, the eerie quiet, made those just words feel heavier now. A bus pulled in, brakes hissing, and Daniel's reflection in the window looked older, sadder, as if the weight of his broken promise had just caught up with him. The next morning, the soft hum of the refrigerator was the only sound in Daniel's kitchen. The table was cluttered with yesterday's coffee mug, unopened bills, and a stack of unread letters. He sifted through them lazily, half focused on his phone, until his fingers brushed against an envelope that felt different. The paper was worn, the corners slightly bent, and his name was written in a familiar, looping handwriting he hadn't seen in years. His chest tightened. He set his phone aside and carefully tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of lined paper, folded neatly but faintly creased from being handled many times. The handwriting was shaky but unmistakably Liam's. Daniel. It's been too long. The doctors say I might not have much time left, but I'd like to see you one more time if you can make it. I'll be at the hospice on Willow Street. I still remember the promise you made, and I've been holding on to it. Your friend. Liam. The date at the top of the page hit him like a punch, it had been written weeks ago. Daniel's stomach churned. He grabbed his phone and dialed Liam's number, praying it would ring. Instead, a cold, automated voice replied, "This number is no longer in service." His hands trembled as he set the phone down. The room suddenly felt smaller, the air heavier. For years, he had convinced himself that a promise broken was harmless. But now, with this letter in his hands, he felt the crushing truth. He might already be too late. The train rattled steadily along the tracks, the rhythmic clatter echoing in the nearly empty carriage. Daniel sat by the window, a small duffel bag at his feet, his fingers gripping the faded letter as though letting go might erase the words. Outside, rain streaked the glass, blurring the passing fields and farmhouses into watercolor smudges. Each mile carried him closer to the city, yet the journey felt unbearably slow, weighed down by memories he had long tried to bury. He could see it so clearly, two teenage boys lying on the grass, staring up at the stars, talking about the adventures they'd have. He remembered the summer Liam got the diagnosis, how he'd cried in secret but smiled in front of everyone else. And Daniel had been there, holding his friend's shoulder, promising he would never let him face it alone. At the time, it hadn't been a casual remark, it had been a vow, made with every ounce of sincerity he had. But life had a way of swallowing good intentions. First came work deadlines, then financial pressures, then the quiet assumption that there would always be more time. Now, with every passing station, that assumption felt like a cruel joke. He stared at his reflection in the window, the tired lines on his face, the regret in his eyes, and realized something that made his chest ache. He wasn't just going to see Liam, he was going to face the person he had been when he made that promise, and the man who had failed to keep it. The hospice was quiet, its hallways lined with muted paintings and the faint scent of antiseptic in the air. Daniel's footsteps echoed softly against the polished floor as he followed the nurse down a narrow corridor. His heart pounded, each beat growing louder with the hope, and fear, of what he might find. They stopped at the last door, sunlight spilling in through a half-open window. The nurse gave him a gentle nod and stepped aside. Daniel pushed the door open slowly. The bed inside was neatly made, the white sheets untouched, as if waiting for someone who would never return. His throat tightened. He scanned the room, a chair by the window, a small potted plant, and on the bedside table, a cardboard box sealed with tape and marked with his name. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a photograph of two grinning teenagers, arms slung over each other's shoulders, the world still wide open before them. Beneath it lay a short note in Liam's handwriting. "You kept me going for years with your promise. I waited as long as I could. I hope you live well, brother." Daniel sank into the chair, the photo clutched in one hand, the note in the other. The room felt unbearably still, except for the soft creak of the window in the breeze. Tears blurred his vision. He had come to make things right, but the chance was gone. All that remained was the hollow ache of words he could never take back. And the memory of the friend who had believed them. Months had passed since that day, but the photograph of two smiling boys never left Daniel's wallet. It traveled with him everywhere, a quiet reminder of a debt he could never repay. The grief had softened into something else now, something that urged him to act rather than dwell. Every Thursday afternoon, he walked to the small community center near his apartment, where volunteers spent time with people battling illness, loneliness, and the slow erosion of hope. This afternoon, he sat beside an elderly man in a wheelchair, listening intently as the man spoke about his youth and the promises he still hoped to keep. When the conversation paused, Daniel placed a hand gently over the man's and said, "I'll be here tomorrow. I promise." His voice carried no hesitation, no empty comfort, only certainty. The man's eyes lit up, and Daniel felt the warmth of that trust settle in his chest. As he left the center, the setting sun painted the street in gold, and for the first time in years, Daniel didn't feel the weight of regret crushing him. He couldn't rewrite the past, but he could honor it, one kept promise at a time. In the quiet rhythm of showing up, he found a new kind of peace. And in every life he touched, he felt a little closer to the friend who had taught him that some promises are more than words, they're the threads that hold people together.